Happy Halloween. That wasn't very creepy.
Happy Halloween,
y'all. Hey, it's Dwight. When we recorded this episode for the Halloween special this year, I forgot to have Darryl plug his Patreon tied to his podcast and to the Poprika Podcast Network. So I'm going to let you know what that is right now. It is patreon.com/Poprika Reviews. He's got some cool things there, so you'll want to know what that is. Oh, and you don't have to @ me. I looked it up after taping the show. I made a mistake about who wrote I Am Legend. It was Richard Matheson. Enjoy knowing that when you listen to this.
The Broken Brain.
In progress.
It's got to make sure everybody knows. Happy Halloween, all you Braniacs out there. Welcome to the Broken Brain Halloween episode. I do holiday episodes so spotty as far as like how consistently I do them or don't do them. But hey, you know what? I was going to say we got Mr. Halloween, Mr. The Long Halloween. We can work a plug in for that. That's still available on the Poprika feed, isn't it?
No, it is no longer available.
Not?
You got to come to me direct if you want it.
Is it on Patreon? Can you get it?
No, it's not even there. It's the only thing that's on there is movie reviews. I've wiped everything else.
It's just in my memory and the Mists of the Ages. Is that what you're saying?
pretty much. And on my hard drive.
I got Darryl Mansel in the house, in your house. That's where you are.
In our respective houses.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's good to be here, man, on the Broken Brain. Much appreciate you having me.
How you were the one who came up with the movie that we were going to watch for today. I was kind of kicking around thinking, oh, it's almost Halloween. I should do an episode. I know who I'm going to ask. I'm going to ask Darryl. And I had always been meaning to see this anyway. This has been something that was a really interest of mine, too. So you picked The Thing.
The Thing.
Yeah. Tell everybody a little bit about why you picked that as your Halloween go-to movie for this project. I have no idea what your history is with it.
So me and horror don't really get down all that often. It's just within maybe the last year-ish. I've been dipping my toes more and more. I had a podcast back in the day called Refried Scenes where we would look at an original and its remake and kind of, compare and contrast all that good stuff. And the other person was a huge horror fan. And it turns out there's just been a slew of horror remakes. So I've just been kind of more and more pushed into. But a couple of years ago, I was like, you know what, man? On Halloween, I think it was like Halloween 2018 or something like that. I was like, I'm going to sit down and commit to a scary movie. Everyone says The Thing is one of those ones you got to watch. And it was amazing, man. I love it. And it has now become my Halloween tradition that on or around Halloween, sit down and I watch The Thing.
I don't know what the Venn diagram is of people out there who have done this, but I actually have read Who Goes There, but had never watched The Thing.
Yeah.
Which is the, I wrote it down because I can never remember his name. John Campbell, right? John Campbell, one of those authors like Philip K. Dick or, who's the other one I'm thinking of? One of those authors who wrote I Am Legend. That might actually be Campbell also, actually. But
I don't know.
I don't remember. There's like 2 or 3 guys who wrote all the stories that sci-fi and horror have all been based on, I think, forever. No, not really.
The blueprints is the days.
You'll find out, like whoever it is, like whoever wrote The Button and whoever wrote I Am Legend, and all these things, Minority Report with Philip K. Dick.
Philip K. Dick.
And you find out they're all like either books or short stories or Post-it notes that they made somewhere along the way that have been made into like every major thing or something. So, and funny enough, I actually a year or 2 ago backed a Kickstarter board game based off of the story Who Goes There.
Oh, no. Did it go anywhere?
Yeah, they funded it. I have it. It's sitting in my shelf over here. I haven't
Very nice.
Just barely that happened, but. So there we go. There's my involvement is that I'd actually read. So the original novella, I could say, it's not a short story, but it's not quite a whole book. I thought I'd define a novella for all the listeners. So I can honestly say right away, the movie was it's when you look at these foundational stories from way back when, you look at anything that was made of them later, like we're seeing with Dune now. Foundational story from a long time ago. Wow, it's cool. I shouldn't. I'm not going to say better when it comes to Dune, so we'll stay away from Dune. They do great things with it with modern storytelling, and even though the thing came out in the 80s, man, it was a little more exciting in some bits than the short story was, for sure. But very interesting right out of the gate.
Yeah, you got I mean, when you're adapting any property, right? Like you get the benefit of hindsight.
Yeah.
I guess you can say, like, you can go back and look at that old story and be like, it's kind of dragging in these parts. We want to make sure, we can, this is excised out when we go to do the actual, the film or whatever. You can kind of see what did work and didn't work. Whereas the author who was right, that had, no idea how the fans were going to receive it. So you can kind of, tweak and massage as you want to get a little bit of a better product. It doesn't always work, but this case did.
I think it did a lot with this one for sure. When I've gone back and looked at some old stories recently for some other project I was doing, looking at some things that are in like the public domain, and I got just down a rabbit hole the other day. And it's funny when you read scary stories from a long time ago, because back then it was like, I came across one that was called The Vampire Maid. It's like a classic short story of this guy who falls in love with a woman and realizes she's a vampire, and then that's it. That's it. That's all, because it's a classic story. So that's it. There's nothing. There's just the idea, right? It's like, I think she's a vampire. Yep. Okay, that's the end.
The end. And readers back then were like, oh no.
Yes. Ooh, scandalous. Burn that. Don't let anyone know I bought it. I'll be ostracized from society for fiction. But it's great to see, like when we're able to do things now. And I can go on and on about modern storytelling about a movie that came out in the 80s, but the really interesting thing.
We're still modernish. Listen, if we're alive, it's modern. That's my only definition.
That's right. Yeah, Kurt Russell and Wilford Brimley were the two that I didn't recognize Wilford Brimley. I just saw him on the pop-up thing on the side and was like, so this is a long time ago, and maybe one of the first times I'd seen Kurt Russell in a I don't even know what he'd done right around that time, but it wasn't too far removed from him being like on those old Disney movies.
Yeah, there's the Disney movies, and I can never remember the order of succession, but this might be one of his original team ups with Carpenter, the director, because they had The Thing, Escape from New York, and
there you go.
Big Trouble in Little China.
Okay.
That was their little run right there. And I think The Thing might have been the first of those.
That's right.
To come out.
Carpenter didn't make The Barefoot Executive. I forgot. That wasn't him.
No.
I saw that this was Carpenter's favorite, according to the Amazon video pop-up notes anyway.
This is his favorite movie he's made?
His favorite movie that he's made.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought that was pretty interesting too.
That is pretty cool, man. I mean, the dude's done like this is the guy who did all those movies I just mentioned. He gave us Halloween, man, one of the iconic slashers, and The Thing is it, huh? That's interesting. I had no idea.
It's a real interesting. Also, Keith Richards, for crying out loud, in this. I mean, it was the first time it showed the whole group kind of gathered together. I was like, well, Michael Pfeiffer's way, way too young to have been in this movie. And then I realized, no, that's not him. It's Keith Richards.
Yeah. You can tell as soon as he says his first word, it's like, oh, I recognize that voice.
Exactly.
You don't see him for 30 minutes, man. I was looking for him. I was like, I know he's in here somewhere. Yeah. And it's 30 minutes on the dot, or almost a third through the movie before he actually says anything.
There's some real cool things done here with timing and with silence, which I want to get into a little. But first, to kind of set the stage of where we're coming at this, I always like to look at some of the psychological elements of fear when it comes to these kinds of movies. I'm a lot like you when it comes to like straight up horror. I am usually not in. I'm like, nah. If you tell me, oh, it's a great horror movie, I'm going to go, oh, well, all right. Is there? I mean, my first gut reaction is there on Earth? And then I realize I've learned that there are, obviously. I've learned to turn away from that judgmental attitude. But it's just not one, especially this one is a strange crossover. A lot of like the traditional horror elements, you'd see other things, but it's one of those that shows people like me that they should appreciate horror better than they do, I guess is one way to say it.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you. This is one of the ones where after watching it, I was like, I've been kind of sleeping on an entire genre of movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, looking at like what causes the things to be fearful, I hit upon. I feel like there's one big one in this that I don't. Well, I guess I probably do see it in other storytelling, but I liked the way that they emphasized it. I mean, you've obviously got the fear of the unknown because like we're like, what is going on and all this. One of the things though that I feel like is showcased here is a certain type of fear that is basically doing the right thing, or at least doing the thing that you think is the best thing you can do in the moment, and then finding out that the reason things are going bad is because you did that thing, like doing the best you can, and that
and it's not quite enough, or it doesn't turn out the way you think it's going to turn out, which just creates that seed of doubt, which is a part of fear, I think.
Absolutely.
It's being placed in multiple no-win situations all throughout this movie. And I was thinking about it this morning in the shower, where all my great ideas come to me. And Carpenter was born in, I think, the 40s, which means he was a wee lad in the 50s when McCarthyism was a thing. And so I wonder if he still carried that seed of, we can't trust you, because he kind of grew up in that, who are the Reds, who are the Americans. And it kind of has that feel, that vibe of, you don't know who you can and can't trust throughout here.
I made a note, actually. There's a line in there. Kurt Russell is talking at one point into that tape recorder where he's like, I need to leave a record of this just in case, foreshadowing, none of us make it out alive. Spoiler alerts, by the way, for The Thing. Maybe I should put that up top. Anyway, we're not going to worry about
1982.
We're not going to worry about any spoilers if anybody, doesn't want to know that people die in this movie. But he's going to hide a audio record, to say like, so everybody knows what happened, just in case we all don't make it. The thing that he says, and I wasn't clear if he actually even taped over it because he didn't want it to be on there. But when he says, nobody trusts anybody now, and he says it with such heartbreak in his voice, kind of just like there's this feeling of loss there, that we're all about to turn on each other. Basically, nobody trusts anybody.
Yeah. You don't get a whole lot of before time, quote unquote, with these guys. You got to do a lot of heavy work to show what life was like before this thing came and interrupted everything. But it seemed like, even though they were a team of professionals there to do whatever it is they're there to do,
which is very ambiguous.
Yes, a research observation station, which nobody's observing Antarctica. There's nothing there to observe. But they did seem like there was a bit of a brotherly love, a kinship. It didn't seem like there was, outside of maybe the roller skating guy having too loud of music, there wasn't much in the way of conflict or drama. And I feel like in that scene, he's kind of lamenting that upcoming loss. Like, he sees the writing on the wall, and he does go back and tape over it. And I don't know if I ever really noticed that until I just watched it. And I'm like, he stops it, rewinds it, and then records again. So he taped. I can't remember what he says when he taped over it, but whatever.
He just gives his name and assignment role.
Sign off or whatever.
Yeah, McGillicuddy pilot, whatever his name. I can't remember his name. His name.
McCready.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
You could probably play as that character in the game that I have. We'll bust. Maybe next year we'll bust that out and see if we can play it over Zoom.
There we go.
So no, and it was almost as if that was too vulnerable somehow.
Yeah, and it kind of gives you a little bit of insight into who he is, and I think that is a scene that is there to tell you that his thoughts might be a half step ahead of everyone else's. He sees where this is going, and he's about 20 minutes away from being right.
Yeah. There is a lot that's being done with silence in this, silence and nonverbal communication, and he doing great things with it. I mean, the way there's a lot of meaningful rough glances at each other, which in any movie with a bunch of guys, I think you can fall into that, where there's a lot of glaring, but the glaring game in this, not only is the glaring game on point, it's actually, I think, utilized pretty well from a standpoint of it's actually communicative. Sometimes you run into this with movies where people, have meaningful glances. And I was rewatching, it was one of the Harry Potter movies actually just the other day. And there's some scene at the end where I think Hagrid was like in jail or something. What am I saying? This has got to be the second one then, right? Yeah. Okay. Anyway, whatever. He comes back from jail and there's just this one little moment where they have so many meaningful glances where he comes up and then Harry looks at him, Ron looks at him, Hermione looks at Ron looks at Hermione, and then Dumbledore looks at everyone, and then everybody claps and they give points to Gryffindor or some. Anyway.
That's actually, you just read the script right there.
Yeah, I think that's what. Yeah, no, yeah, I have it open another window, and so it's often overdone in movies. Right. It's this kind of thing that it's a way to shorthand communicate. But I felt like in this one, I actually almost heard the dialogue that it was taking the place of each time. I mean, and that's how I can tell it's done well. If it's like, for sure what he's saying when he looks at him like that. And Keith Richards is like, I'm going to kill you. Yeah. I feel like
why. I feel like most of those glances are conveying one specific phrase, and most of them are conveying, oh shit, something's about to go wrong here.
Something's about to happen.
Yeah, something's about to. Most of it is foreboding, I guess would be the best word of either be on your guard or I don't trust this person. I think is the main two themes, the two shorthands that's going on between most of those glances.
Yeah. With the idea, it hit me right up front at the top when they have the Norwegians crash into their camp chasing the dog. And of course, they're shooting the dog. And having known anything, I think even just being in the cultural awareness of what this movie is about, you already knew what was happening now. Of course, in the theaters, who knows what anybody knew. And having read the book, the first thing I thought was like, oh, that's cool. This is a new wrinkle of how to introduce this, and it's dramatic right up front. That's pretty cool. In the book, there's no Norwegians. It's the Americans who just find the spaceship themselves, and which is a little more boring and tedious. So it's nice that they mix it up a little bit to shortcut that part.
Yeah, I mean, it's again going back to seeing what didn't quite work in the book. Yeah. You can find that punch it up a little bit, and it kind of throws the audience right into the what the F is happening here? Why would anyone just randomly be shooting at a dog? Not just shooting at a dog, but chasing a dog in a helicopter.
Shooting through strangers at the dog.
Shooting through. It creates like a combination of immediately you're off your guard, a little bit of apprehension towards them because no one wants to see people shooting at dogs. And also it shows that desperation of why are they so intent on killing this dog, and just throws you right into with a million questions right off top.
Yeah. Right away, we get the guy, the commander, take a shot at the Norwegian guy, shoots him, kills him. But here's a guy who is shooting and has already shot one of his men in the camp, and that's where this phrase popped in my head right away, which is that was the right thing to do. However, that allows the tainted dog to then assimilate with other living forms, which we know is now like potentially doomed the world. And so right away, here's this guy who, and they once again do good facial expression work where you can tell he's not happy that he had to shoot this guy, but he's like, nobody questions, what are you going to do? These guys come blowing up stuff and shooting people. And so right away, he's done what is the right thing for a commander to do in that situation. But it's the wrong outcome. It's going, for a bad way. And that triggered off this thought process I had throughout the whole thing of just like, well, yeah, that is the right thing to do. Ooh. And then the right thing becomes more and more complex and more murky as you go to where the right thing is at some point. I think that the characters, I should say what you think about this. The characters don't really say this out loud till the very end, but at some point you start wondering, like, what is the morality or the ethics of even trying to survive this scenario? If you're there's this creature that's trying to get to the general population of Earth, and within whatever they calculated, like within 27,000 hours, all humanity will be wiped out, right? What is the morality of me, an individual in that group of people, trying to even survive this, trying actively to survive this scenario when I could be a host to this creature?
Yeah, it's the one character that never really quite gelled for me was Wilford Brimley. because Wilford Brimley, that's his first thought. As soon as he punches in his metrics in the computer and he gets that readout of eventually the whole world will be affected by this thing, he immediately goes into panic mode, and he knows that they cannot get off. I'm never sure when he's infected. That never really made sense. I have the spoilers, I guess, of when Wilford Brimley gets infected. Yeah. But yeah, it seems like his first thought was we can't leave this place. And I think McCready starts off as we just gotta kill it off, and then whoever remains is good. But I feel like he kind of just shifts his thinking towards the end of none of us are getting out of here. If it was me, man, I just gotta go. I've always been very Spock in that thinking. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. And in this case, this is the needs of the few, man. Where they have to stop this at its inception point as quick as possible, or this is a whole global thing.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's the thing that you get into. And not that nobody would try. It brings up a big question for me, which is, do you think everybody who was infected knew they were infected?
No.
Yeah. See, that was what I got of it too. And the original work kind of, I can't remember if they might even out and out say that they wouldn't necessarily know if they were. I mean, once again, Brimley at one point definitely knows towards the end there when he's fighting back, but where the thing, so to speak, has taken over completely, I guess. But you definitely get the idea that at least some of them didn't know until they start having an outbreak or outburst or whatever you want to call it, right?
Yeah, and it makes it a different level of creepy. Like it takes all the malevolence out of it, right? Like if it's like the killer is amongst us and the killer knows he's hiding amongst us, there's a level of malevolence right there. Yeah. But not knowing that you could be the killer, it adds a different level in there of, it let me free. I know I'm not infected. Oh well, and turns out you are. But
turns out you are infected. Your blood just took a swipe at me when I burned it.
When I heated it up.
That's what the thing. It's always good when there's like some kind of a test like that that's just like okay, here we go, something bad happened, nope, oh maybe, no, here it comes, and you don't even know if it works at all at first, which was built up a lot of that. And I think that adds a little bit of that extra suspense, which goes, and for me goes into that. I'm kind of obsessed with this idea of like, I'm sitting here, if I'm in one of the shoes of those people, saying I'm trying to do the right thing too, I'm trying to get rid of all the creatures, and then I hope I'm not one. And it reminded me of Loki. If anybody out there's, if you've watched Loki, the TV show on Disney Plus, he comes through there. They have a scanner in this like weird time variance headquarters. He's been taken into custody, and they have him walk through the scanner. They're like, "You're not a robot, right?" And he's like, "No. If you do walk through and you're a robot, you're going to melt or die. So just tell us first." "No, I'm not a robot." And right before he walks through, he's like, "Does anybody ever not think they're a robot?" And turns out they are a robot.
He just psyched himself all the way out, man. That's a great scene. And that scene that we were just talking about with the blood, I think, is for me the best scene in the movie, because that's where a lot of your tension is, a lot of your drama is at. And it wasn't until watching it this time that I realized just how prevalent this idea is in society today. You do your best to stay masked up and to wash your hands and all that, but you could still catch some viruses out here. And if you're asymptomatic, not know you're passing it on, not know that you are yourself infected. And it kind of puts a different spin on things watching it nowadays. But that is the scene for me, is the blood testing scene. And, the guy freaks out and the other guys are tied to the couch right beside him. And that is a horrible position that no one would ever want to be in.
And of course, the flamethrowers don't work. One of the two flamethrowers that this scientific expedition brought with them to Antarctica, further muddying the waters of who they are and why they're there.
Listen, if I'm going to Antarctica, I'm going to take a flamethrower. That's just
well, now, especially after seeing this movie.
It's true. It's true.
3. Got to bring at least 3. 2 wasn't quite enough.
Yeah. I got 2 hands. That's 2 for me right there.
Yeah. No, it's and at that moment too is where it starts to get murkier and murkier, right? Because it's like, well, now we're trying to do the right thing, which is essentially stay alive / save the world. You've got this sort of like really beautifully simplistic, we're all in this weird part of the earth with no one around to help us, and we're trying to stay alive. But then also we're like the last line of defense for humanity, for crying out loud. Not the guys you'd probably put together if you were putting together a group of guys to be the last, line before. You wouldn't necessarily think like, oh yeah, those guys, whoever, they don't seem to be a real crack unit. This seem to be a bunch of people who don't mind being in Antarctica for 6 months or however long,
Yeah. And that's kind of what makes it, I think, a good movie. Like, if you assemble your crack team of professionals or whatever, people who train for this and they're not going to break under pressure and all that, then that kind of takes a lot of the tension away. If you throw some everyday Joes who are just running at high stress, I think McCready says at the beginning of the movie he hasn't slept in days. Yeah. So you got that whole edge going to having the normal Joes be the one that has to save. That's why we all like Armageddon so much. It's just a bunch of blue collar dudes who go up there and save the world. Here's the same deal.
Right. No, you're absolutely right, because you put a bunch of like trained guys in there. They're going to be what? It's going to be like set up a thermite bomb and take suicide pills, is step one, right? And it's done.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing. Now, see, of the two of us, only one of us has military experience, and I guess people could guess that it's not me. I was curious watching it, since you had mentioned how much you liked it, what you thought of the sort of mission objective thinking of how these guys did function as a unit. I think somewhat militaristic in their organization, loosely.
Yeah, loosely. You can see that there's some sort of chain of command there, right? We had the commander dude who was wearing some type of uniform looking thing. But I think that kind of ties back to what you said about increasingly desperate bad decisions. Like, in a situation like this, all hell's going to break loose. All structure is going to break down. And it just becomes how well you can navigate the nonsense when your flow of communication has broken down. And, McCready, God bless him, he stayed sane throughout a good bit of it. And then you kind of see it starts fraying his nerves when he shoots his own guy there that was trying to, sneak up behind him for the sucker punch or whatever. But I think it all comes down to the increasingly bad decisions, no matter what squad or unit you're with, it's going to end up happening.
Yeah. And you see where there's a little inconsistency in his thing, which is, well, don't take a chance, lock us out, burn us, whatever you have to do if we're infected, if you think we are. And then he, when backed into a corner, all of a sudden he's got dynamite, right? Saying like, you're not going to freeze me outside. You are not going to, when his back is up against it. But then, of course, when he sees the other guy in danger, he doesn't know he's I almost said symbiont, but not symbiote, whatever it is.
The Thing 3, let there be carnage.
There was some carnage there. But and now that's in the MCU, so we just did that. See how easy that is?
That happens.
Multiverse, you can do anything with the multiverse. But so he's still got that, and it is one of the more morally complex moments of the film. Actually, is the line that Keith Richards' character says to him while they're all tied up, and he's not buying it. He's like, "I think you're just infected, and you're crazy, and you're going to kill us all." He calls him murderer when they test the blood, and he's like, he was just a human. He was just trying to protect himself, and you killed him. But it's like, and McCready keeps going. He doesn't stop and say, hey, how about 5 minutes before that? Same thing. You were doing the same thing to me.
Yeah,
I was, human, and left him out there. And in fact, it was that very same character who moments before someone said, what if we're wrong? And his response, well, then we're wrong.
Well, then we're wrong. Yeah,
that's a big deal. Yeah,
their whole chemistry, it's one of my favorite like blow for blows there is. And I mean, between McCready and I think Childs was the other character's name. Yeah. Them two, and then Roddy Piper and whoever in They Live, which is also a John Carpenter movie. Like those two are going back. He knows how to have two good antagonistic. I thought that might have been him. Yeah, he knows how to make two good antagonist people foils for each other. That's pretty much what he is, what Childs is to McCready throughout this movie.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. It was the Keith Richards verse of John Carpenter. We need to track this through and see how much else he's been in there. Personally, I might put him in everything, but
it's that voice, man. That voice is silky.
One of my favorite uses of his voice was that they had him do a voiceover for an episode of the show Community. Mm-hmm. If you remember that, they did it was like a blanket fort and a pillow fort that the two Abed and Danny Pudi and Danny Glover's characters do this, and they did a whole like Ken Burns documentary style episode about the war between these two different college dorm fort movements, and Keith Richards did the voiceover for it.
Nice, nice.
Which, if it was the ending of it, when they had Joel McHale interacted with him as a voiceover person, they do the voiceovers at the end together, and he asks him right before they fade out, "Hey, weren't you in the Cape?" And there's this big pause, and Keith Richards is like, "No." Anyway, Well, what do you think it's dead at the end? The Thing, is it really dead?
That is why this is one of my favorite movies. Yeah. Like there's no definitive way of really knowing. Like we know it's not McReady, right? Because we see pretty much everything from his point of view. The only time he's out of our point of view is when they cut the tow line and he has to break his way back in. You can tell he's so desperate to stay alive that it's probably not him. I think actually they test his blood afterwards, so you get confirmation it's on him. But there's a stretch of time where you don't see Childs, and you don't know if he's been infected at any point or not. But are they like just dead? Do they just freeze? Yeah. Yeah, I mean the generator's gone, so there's your heat right there.
Right. And those two, at least, and I don't think we ever see the cook again. He just kind of fades off somewhere.
No, you don't. No, you don't see the cook. I don't think he does just kind of disappear.
Yeah, you only see his body, and he's roller skates off somewhere into the
night. The smartest one in the whole movie.
He's gonna pull maybe there's a deleted scene somewhere where he pulled an LL Cool J when he was the cook on that shark movie.
Is that a Deep Blue Sea?
Yeah, Deep Blue Sea.
Yeah.
The cook survived. The charismatic cook survived trope that apparently now exists.
The surviving trope, the surviving cook cinematic universe is. We got it. There's a couple more out there. I'll figure it out.
That's going to be next season 2 of What If. I think that's.
What if all the cooks survived?
Yeah, but no, that's a good point because of Keith Richards. I mean, and there's Russell's character even says to him, right, if we got any more surprises for each other, it's too late. We're not going to be able to do anything about it anyway. So they're not going to burn. If either of them is infected, they die and freeze, or they freeze as an alien. Right. Yeah,
and I know they're talking about trying to hold out for the rescue team and all that, but by the time that rescue team gets out there, which I assume it would be like, hey, that team should have been back 2 days ago.
Right.
We haven't heard from them. Send somebody out there. But that's probably months down the road anyways.
Right. I think they referenced it as being spring, right? Didn't they? I mean, it wasn't going to be a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, who knows if anyone's looking for the Norwegians, but still.
That's a good point. I didn't think about that. Yeah, I mean, the Norwegians might have their own survival team, but
there's like a French unit just like 10 minutes down the other way. Who knows? I don't know.
Nope. Yeah. Nope, not us. Keep that over there.
Well, I'm watching them blow up over here, blow up over there. I think we're just going to close our doors and
and you kind of see that in the Norwegian camp. Like everything's just all burnt out. And you're like, man, what happened here? And then you start eventually putting that two and two together once they pull out the flamethrowers of, their camp's going to end up looking a lot like the Norwegian camp did.
Which camp is that? Let's see. There's a lot of flamethrowers. Must be the Americans. Pretty sure. The Norwegians brought like that one rifle. But they're like, there's nothing out there. Come on. So whereas the commander in the American camp wore his gun all the time up until that point, even before the alien got there, I think.
Right. Just walking around the base like, what? Come on, guy.
that being up there, I also appreciated and thought it was pretty cool that at the point where they decide we're not going to make it out of here, I happened to look down, and this could be counting the credits, I'm not sure, but there was something like 17 or 20 minutes left when they decide we're not going to make it out of here, but neither is that thing. Let's blow up its weird ship that it's making out of helicopter parts. It was trying to make a flying ship out of the helicopter.
Out of what was
so it's
a flying ship.
It was a flying ship, so it's really smart, except it didn't know how to fly a helicopter, I guess. But no, they make that decision, which I thought was pretty cool, because sometimes that's, as a movie trope, the decision that we're going to make a final stand is usually like a last couple minutes. And often in movies, especially U.S. movies, doesn't happen. There's some weird little loophole and they make it out, right? Which, depending on the genre of the movie, is fine. I don't mind people living through the movie mostly, but in this kind of a movie, I think there's a gravity there. There's a certain weight there to that decision of saying, like, no, we're going to save the world, and we're not just probably going to die. We're in Antarctica. We blow up the base, right. We're going to be dead in minutes, And then they make that decision, and there's quite a bit of struggle and fighting going forward with this sure knowledge. And as the viewer, also being pretty sure that, the sure knowledge is they're not going to make it out of here. And I thought that was kind of interesting.
It is. I mean, I feel like most viewers will come to that conclusion long before the characters come to that conclusion of, these guys ain't making it out of here.
Right.
And I feel like had someone else other than John Carpenter not made that movie, there's a possibility that they could have. But Carpenter knows what he kind of deals a lot in that grim and dour world. Mm-hmm. Big Trouble Little China notwithstanding, but he does make very bleak movies, and that this is a very stark, bleak, just visually in terms of tone. And there is no other ending. Had at least McCready made it out of there alive, that this movie would be nowhere near as beloved by me as it is. It's fatalistic. It's kind of what it is. Like, this is our job. We're the only ones who can do this job. And if it's got to cost us, it's got to cost us. And rewatching it this time around, I appreciated McCready more for that, because he's very much a man of business throughout that movie, except for the beginning when he's like, I just want to get drunk before everything goes down. But once things go down, he's very much matter of fact, man of business. We are going to die. And I kind of like that in the character.
Yeah. And it's also one of the things that, too, is kind of interesting in a way, because as we're looking at this from the scary story standpoint, right, there's the fear of that, obviously fear of death. And now we're facing that and having to work and fight hard while still knowing and facing that fear of death. On the other hand, there's a hopeful note in there, too, because it's like we had said, is this the crack unit of commandos that would just set up a nuclear charge and detonate it after killing themselves or something to blow up the monster? No questions asked. No, whatever. No. But it's kind of, in a way, even though it's bleak, there's a hopeful message buried in here somewhere to say, in this extremity, here's a bunch of guys that, you're not really 100% sure if all of them are guys you'd want to hang out with, or you're not 100% sure that any one of those guys didn't have maybe a little pile of reasons everywhere else in the world that it made sense to be in Antarctica for a while. Mm-hmm. But they still largely were like, we got to save the world, obviously. I mean, there really wasn't a lot of pushback saying, screw the world. I want to live. Like, they didn't really go there with that.
Yeah, they didn't. And I feel like there definitely would have been, had this been made today, there would have been that character. Yes, definitely. Or if this was remade today, they would add in that character of that Paul Reiser character that's a little bit Weasley. Right. Definitely might sabotage one helicopter and use another helicopter to get away or something like that.
Something like that. Right. Yeah. Yeah. But I thought it was way stronger. And also there's that hopeful message buried in there somewhere that is like, a lot of people probably would be willing to lay it all down if they had to, if it was going to really save everybody that they knew and cared for in the whole world. I mean, come on,
Yeah. Look, as bleak and dour as it is, at the end of the day, the world is saved. So yeah, there's definitely that it ends on a strange down upbeat.
Yeah,
I guess you could say.
And McCready finally gets to just get drunk at the end. I think. I think he found a bottle somewhere in there.
Yeah, you got that bottle of J&B with him, man. He's good to go.
You blew up whatever expedition and whatever agency sent them. They were not want for firearms, booze, or flamethrowers.
Yeah, right.
So.
We're sending you to the most remote part of the world with a lot of ammunition and firepower.
Bring back lots of data. I don't know. Did we send anyone with them who knew what they were doing? Oh man,
no.
We forgot something.
A bunch of dudes with guns and explosives. They'll figure it out.
We want to see if they can survive for a while before we send scientists. Those people are valuable. That turns out, nope.
Nope. Little did we know this is just the infantry to go out there. But yeah, it is. I know that's 2011, I think, prequel exists. That kind of tells you how we got there. Have you seen this movie? I haven't seen it.
I didn't see it. No, I definitely hadn't. No, I had been meaning to watch this one that we watched, but so therefore I hadn't had anything to do with anything else that had to do with that. And it is interesting to me in a way to have such a classic piece not have been sequeled or remade or something. You know?
Yeah, they
did prequel
it, and that's a bit. Yeah, I think from what I hear, it kind of ends with them shooting at the dog, and that's how the end credits go. So I'm assuming that it's just the Norwegian half of the story, and I would like to see like how what differences, like did they send the Norwegians packing with a whole bunch of stuff, or are they actual just scientists, or how do they handle it? But I'm not curious enough to go watch it.
Well, it's interesting because it's one of those that begs the question: how do you make that interesting? And I would imagine the answer is probably not contained in that project. I don't know if it would be interesting to watch that because it doesn't sound very interesting.
Well, you still got the fear of the unknown, right? You got your Norwegian team. You don't know who's who. Sure. I mean, they're the ones who discovered it, so there's a little bit of something in there. But if it's enough to cover a whole, 90 to 120 minutes, don't know.
Right. Yeah. Sounds almost more like a short film we could make. No.
Yeah.
Here I am talking a lot. I mean, how many movies have I made? None.
Pool of resources together. We'll get this figured out.
Yeah, exactly. That'll be on the Patreon. If you what's the level of Patreon for both of our podcasts that people have to put in order to get us to make that movie? Well, we'll decide. We'll talk off air.
We'll figure that out. That's $1,000 tier right there.
Tell people, because the Poprika podcast has been reimagined, and in the last year or so you've been doing really interesting things with it. Tell everybody about that. I've plugged it on here before, but
that is much appreciated, sir. That is much appreciated. What it was, a kind of a network of different pop culture related shows. Now that has been kind of shuttered at the end of 2020, and then focused more on just film criticism. It's kind of been reimagined to just the audio version of my reviews. So I can kind of give it to you in two different forms. If you got a little time to sit down, like on a lunch break or something like that, you could read the review, or if you're on the go in your car, in the grocery store, whatever, you can just listen to said review. So I'm trying to give you multiple avenues to get my thoughts, and a couple other bits of shenanigans here and there that'll also pop up on the show, or on the show movie related.
You still do cinnamon and refried scenes occasionally too on there, right? I see those.
Yep. Yeah. Cinnamon still exists. I mean, I can't not have a show without my podcasting partner, Doug Davison. Refried scenes also still exists. I am not the host of it anymore. It's right. Carol Coles and Mia Davis. They do just as good as work as me and Carol did in the original refried scenes.
They do a great job. Yeah, I really have liked it. They did a episode about the Get Carters, the two movies, Get Carter. Yeah. I'll tell you, there's not a ton of places to go. I have on the internet. I haven't had too many things pop up in my podcatcher to address the both of the movies Get Carter, which made it like I am on that Venn diagram of like who's a person who's like, ooh, movie where they're talking about the Sylvester Stallone and the Michael Caine Get Carter and let's comparing them. That was very exciting to me to see that, and they had some great comments about it. Yeah, that they were saying.
Yeah, try to make talking about movies a little bit fun. I mean, movies are inherently supposed to be fun and interesting, but I sometimes feel that people talking about them can be a little bit pretentious or stuffy or dry or no, film is art.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
Or just mean spirited.
That's one of the reasons that I'm such a fan of not just of the Poprika podcasting work, but of your Facebook group. I feel like you have sculpted the most healthy fandom site, Facebook group that I've ever seen. I mean, it's funny because I've left most other ones, but I'm a member of some other group on Facebook. I don't want to malign any other groups. Let's just call it Movie Talk. Let's just call it that. I don't know, just in case maybe there is one. And about 50-50, the responses you're going to see on there are angry, bitter, threatened, toxic dudes versus like in Poprika, people are going to come up and say thoughtful stuff, and they're going to actually talk about things and agree or disagree. It's a very, very respectful environment 90% of the time, I'd say, if more.
Yeah, we try. Thank you. We try. I mean, we've been a little bit stressed over the last couple of days, man. Keeping an eye on things, just trying to make sure that everyone has a pleasurable experience when they're in Poprika. I mean, I think it's fairly generally known that people aren't the hugest fans of Facebook or Meta right now. But if you are going to come on there, man, at least just try to have one corner where you can just kind of lay your cares aside and just kind of geek out for a little bit. We want to make sure it's as welcoming to everybody as we possibly can, man.
Well, and one of the differences too is that you can tell a good group, I think, when it self-polices to a certain extent, because I've noticed if somebody new to the group or someone says something mean-spirited or, kind of whatever, they'll get, but first of all, before any admins or anything, people come around and they say, hey, are you in the right group? They literally, I've seen people on there say, we don't treat each other like that in this group, man. Yeah. I don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And once or twice I've seen people go, oh, my bad. And then they don't ever do it again in that group. And I think people are so like, their reflexes are to go, all right, I'm coming in hot. And it's like, no, you don't have to come in hot. I don't.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Just
cool.
Yeah. Just show up and enjoy yourself. I worked as a bouncer at a fairly well-known bar in San Antonio. But as a bouncer, I never had to do anything because people loved being there so much. They knew that they didn't want to mess up the vibe and run the risk of getting tossed out and not being able to come back in. So everyone behaved themselves, and it was a cake job for me. And that's kind of the atmosphere I've gone for here. Is I don't want to miss out on the fun stuff. So let me not be a dick about things.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a cool thing. Everybody should be on there. If you're a fan of this show or a fan of life, or even if you're not listening right now, you should still go over to Facebook Poprika group and do that. So all of those of you out there that are not listening, definitely do that. That's a recommendation, kind of, right? I think
That's a great recommendation. Glowing.
So everyone in the world, in 27,000 hours, everyone will be on Poprika.
All poor 7 admins stressed out.
All right. Hey, happy Halloween, man. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing me on, man. I love talking about the thing. This is the time to watch it, man. Is Halloween or when it's cold outside, man. You're never gonna have a bad time watching this movie. So thanks for letting me talk about it.
Thank you for listening to the Court and Parts Podcast Network. To listen to more Court and Parts shows, visit courtandarts.com.